All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, most misunderstood ideas in all of philosophy, Nietzsche's Overman. To really get it, we're going to go right to the source, to the very beginning in his incredible book, The Gay Science. So let's just dive right in with a question that Nietzsche basically throws in our face. What if everything we've ever been told about the meaning of life, from religion, morality, all those grand purposes, what if it was all just a survival mechanism, a crutch we've been leaning on for our entire history? You see, to really grasp what the Overman is all about, we first have to understand Nietzsche's diagnosis of, well, us. He argues that we are fundamentally dependent on someone or something else to tell us why we're here. And he has this fantastic name for these outside sources, teachers of the object of existence. Basically, these are all the big systems, religion, traditional ethics, even certain philosophies, that hand us a purpose on a silver platter. They give us the ready-made answers because, frankly, we've had a really hard time coming up with them on our own. And why do we need them? Well, according to Nietzsche, it's because we're kind of stuck in this weird in-between stage of evolution. We're this half-animal, right? We're not just driven by raw instinct anymore, but we're also not fully self-sufficient beings who can generate our own meaning. We need that external support. So this is a huge point. That moral crutch, it's not a bad thing. Not initially. It's what keeps our entire species from just giving up. It's the barrier that protects us from staring into the abyss and falling into what he calls suicidal nihilism, that paralyzing feeling that nothing matters, so why even bother living? Okay, so if morality is just a tool for survival and not some divine truth handed down from on high, what does that do to our whole idea of good and evil? This is where things get really interesting. Nietzsche looks at all these things we've been taught are wicked: pride, ambition, that raw creative spark, defiance. And he says, hold on a second. These aren't evil. They're just life itself. They're expressions of what he calls the will to power, that fundamental drive in everything to grow, to expand, to become more. And this is the absolute key. The Overman, this future human he envisions, doesn't try to crush these instincts. No way. They grab hold of them. They learn to harness that dangerous energy and use it as fuel to forge an entirely new way of living, a new set of values. And of course, this sets up the ultimate showdown in Nietzsche's philosophy: the struggle of that exceptional, creative individual against the powerful pull of the group, or what he famously calls the herd. And you can really see the difference laid out so clearly here. The herd, it's all about playing it safe, just preserving the status quo. It needs a teacher to tell it why it exists, and it is terrified of chaos. But the Overman, totally different story. They're not about preserving, they're about creating. They don't look for a purpose, they are the purpose. And chaos, for them, that's just raw material to build with. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you get from one side of that chart to the other? Well, for Nietzsche, it's not a physical change, it's a huge psychological leap. It's about changing the whole story we tell ourselves about life, moving from a story of tragedy to one of joy. And that journey kind of looks like this. First, you have to see the fiction. You look at all those historical moral codes and realize, hey, people made these up. They're not absolute truths. Then you learn to embrace the play. You stop seeing your life as this heavy, serious tragedy and start seeing it as a kind of comedy that you get to write yourself. And that leads to the biggest step of all. You learn to affirm life, to just say a powerful yes to all of it, the good, the bad, the chaos, without needing any reason or excuse. And that final stage, that's what Nietzsche famously describes as becoming the child. Think about it. A child plays with pure joy, creating new worlds without asking why or needing a logical reason. That's the goal. A radical, joyful acceptance of everything, just as it is. So this is where it all leads. What does a world actually look like after we've outgrown these old teachers? What's next for humanity? Well, once you see those old rules for what they are, just survival tools from a different era, the whole world changes. For the Overman, the so-called meaninglessness of the universe isn't terrifying, it's liberating. It's a giant blank canvas. The apparent pointlessness of it all is the ultimate freedom to create your own meaning, your own values, your own masterpiece. And this really just says it all, doesn't it? The Overman does not need a hero to tell him why he exists, because he is his own hero. It's that huge, incredible shift from needing someone else to give you a story to becoming the heroic author of your own. And that leaves us with the final and maybe most important question, because this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. Nietzsche is turning the tables and asking you, if you kicked away all those crutches, all the meanings you've been handed by society, by family, by tradition, what new values would you build? What becomes your purpose when you finally realize that you are the only one who gets to create it?